So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you firstly to Paddy Woods, our Director of Sales and Marketing, who will be hosting the call today. And we're very fortunate to have Tina Fegent on the call. For those who don't know Tina, I think she's probably best described as a legend in the marketing industry. Tina was one of the first to work globally in the marketing and procurement arena, and she's worked in this area for over 30 years. She established many of the first marketing procurement teams in the UK for the likes of Cellnet, Telefonica, SmithKline, GSK, Orange and French Telecom. She's covered areas such as Lucozade bottles to the Arrows Formula One team. There probably isn't a category that Tina hasn't actually done procurement for in any of the marketing disciplines. She was the first procurement person to work agency side with Lowe Advertising as their commercial director. She then did the same role at Lowe Advertising, and her experience has taught her how to work commercially with agencies. She really understands both the client and agency sides of the business, which I think is vitally important. In terms of her awards, it's a pretty amazing list, and I'm going to do a slightly abbreviated version. She was Woman in Marketing. She has a Woman in Marketing award, and she was the first procurement person to appear in Campaign's annual A list, and was described by them as a good egg, which I can confirm is absolutely correct. She is also has a lifetime fellowship of CIPS, which is the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply. So as you can see, Tina has an amazing CV, a huge amount of experience, and we're really lucky to have her on the call today. So without further ado, I would like to pass you over to Paddy, who will take things on from here. Thank you.
Brilliant, David. Thank you very much for the introductions. And Tina, welcome to the BD Club. As David said, we've got a great session ahead of us. So we're going to get lots of lovely insights from Tina. So thank you. And it will really help give you some direction in terms of your marketing and new business activity for 2022. It's going to be a very interactive session today with Tina. So we'll just get lots of questions we're going to ask. But if you've got any questions, please do add them into the chat, and then I'll bring them into the conversation as well. So Tina, it is great to have you here, and thank you for joining us.
Pleasure, Paddy. Nice to see you. Hi, everyone. Hi to those that I know.
There's lots of faces you probably do know. It's been a while since I used to run the Marketing Procurement Action Group at ISBEN. It's been a while since that date. I think I ended in 2014. And I remember that there was this real start of procurement in the UK. And I remember having these lots of conversations with marketing procurement professionals about, and there was such a diverse range of quality in terms of the professionals at that time. I remember having a conversation around e-auctions, and there was one particular marketing procurement person, I can't name his name because he will shoot me, but he, in the role of e-auctions, he wanted to go for the cheapest agency first, and then he wanted to negotiate them down further. So I'd love to get your view on a couple of things just to get the ball rolling in terms of what's changed since the compact days when I was there at ISBA in 20.
I've got my glasses on for this because I actually, one, because I'm getting on, but yeah, so great question, Paddy, and I thought, right, I'm doing my prep, and actually I've come up with 14 things. So I'm going to have to do a LinkedIn article, I think, after it. So I think what has changed, the main thing is coming out of COVID, I think procurement generally has got a bigger license to act, because when the shit hit the fan, I remember talking to the procurement guy at M&S, and he'd done a categorization of all his suppliers before COVID, and when it all closed down, he's going through all his top suppliers, and actually the most important thing for him actually was the pest control people, because shops were shut, wasn't even on their list. So, or talking to Mike at ASOS in terms of, he was having like almost daily calls with the CFO. So I think the main one as procurement is at the top table a lot more coming out of COVID. So it's got a bigger license to act. I think the second one is moving away. I haven't seen that many e-auctions, so hopefully those of you that are watching their agency side, fingers crossed, you haven't seen that many more. The good marketing procurement, I've always been quite clear, there's good and there's not so good. The good ones have moved away from that that cost savings. And actually, if you ask a lot of procurement people, they don't have cost saving targets, and it's very much about being value led. And things like Project Spring, those of you that are aware of the WFA, they have a really active procurement group headed up by Lowe Advertising, and it's worth having a look at Project Spring, which came out 2 years ago, which was actually about the value and the role that marketing procurement can bring, and it's a global report as well. We have more events, so we have a thing called ProcuredCon, which our old Pimento friend Mark Palmer always laughs about. ProcuredCon. It's, the two words don't go together, but they have marketing events in the UK, for Europe and the US. So there's a lot more education in place for procurement people. Agency models, I did my chart 3 years ago that was published in the Drum, 20 agency models. I'm just talking to Drum about updating that. So there's much more flexibility, and procurement has a role. In a sourcing process, step one is make versus buy. Too often our marketeer clients go to step two, I need an agency. And actually, I've just literally come off a call working with a client, and I talked to a production consultant about actually step one is what is the right model, and procurement has a role to play in that. And obviously leading on from that is in-housing, and then procurement's played quite a big role in that. So, I'm halfway through the list. Martech, obviously the huge increase in using marketing technology. Procurement is getting involved in that, and again, that does fit in with the whole digitalization of procurement anyway, in that it's really, the ecosystem that we work in, and actually using AI and tools like that. So, in the procurement process, any auctions was one of the first to do it, but actually trying to use AI tools more for supply and market information. Marketing ops, increasing that role, sometimes a threat to marketing procurement, but actually you can work alongside them. Being called marketing investment managers, it's those of you who haven't read it, it's a great book. It's a book I always wish I'd written, by Jerry Priest, who's actually in the Lever. Have a look in Amazon. It's a very thin book, like our Magic and Logic one. It's really, really worth a read. And he always said that we should be called marketing investment managers. And I think that's a really, really good insight. It's still valid these days. Metrics, we're getting more involved in return on investment, and actually, I'm working on a couple of research projects for clients. And there's loads of us. There's much more loads of us. And the last one is under pressure. I think I caught up with 6 of my marketing procurement friends yesterday, and unfortunately, they're global jobs, they are smaller teams, and they're under more pressure, which niggles me a bit, because when under pressure, is it about driving savings? So I think a long answer, Paddy, but I was quite surprised at what's changed in 8 years. Actually, a hell of a lot. Majority of it is very, very positive in my view.
And that's really good to hear. And actually, I remember always in those conversations, the marketing procurement was still under pressure, and they had much more huge variety of roles. And going back to that sort of the quality side of things, is there still a massive difference in the quality of marketing procurement professionals in the UK at the moment, or globally?
I think there is a difference. I think it's not massive. I think the good ones have got even more, have got better and are more brilliant. Especially the global ones. It annoys me when people say marketing procurement, oh, it's fairly new. Well, I've been doing it for 30 years. I think, can you see some of the grey hair? I'm not sure, but we have been around. I've been doing it for 30 years, so we're not new. So I think the good ones are much more established. You talk to people like the guy who heads up, Chris, who heads up Mars. I talked to him at ProcuredCon. There's Tracy Ellery in the States, in Nestle. There's some great strategic thinkers out there. So I think the gap has narrowed. So I think the good ones have got brilliant, are involved in things like WFA and Project Spring. And I think you have still got ones that are focused on cost saving. And, you're always going to have the ones. At the end of the day, procurement is there to manage the money. I think what agencies often don't do, and it gets on some of the questions we'll talk about later, is understand where they're coming from. So I think it's understanding what camp they fit in. So I think the gap has got a lot smaller. The good ones have got brilliant, and you still got the ones that look at cost. I would say that's probably 20-30%. The good ones are probably the 70%.
That's good to know. And actually, bringing that question in right now is in terms of actually, do you think agencies know how to manage their interactions with marketing procurement? Or is it sort of one they focus on the marketing decision maker, and they forget the marketing procurement decision maker?
I think they've got better. I think the bigger ones definitely have. For me, it's a mindset. I think don't waste time being negative. You know, don't waste time wishing they're going to go away. You know, there will be the ones that look at costs and will look at your hourly rate. That's, you know, can you change it? No. Does it give you an idea of perhaps it no, does it reflect how the organisation works? Maybe not. And that's why I've always said, and this is how look my agent's experience, when you get a procurement person involved, make sure you've got their stakeholder in that first meeting. Because I remember when I was at Lowe's, we were dealing with Unilever, and the procurement guy was like, I want you to look at X, Y, and Z. So I said, look, hang on, let's get the stakeholder involved. Who completely dissed what procurement's Woody, that is Jerry Priest. I forget what it's called. Look up Jerry with a G, Gerry, Priest, Preece. Just look on Amazon Woody, and it's on there. It's a little thin book. I'm trying to see if I've got it here. So I think always get procurement and marketing together, and you can see where they're coming from. And actually, is the procurement person acting alone, or are they aligned with the marketing stakeholder? Are they being a cost focus, or are they being a marketing investment manager? So really, I think agencies, once you understand that actually the procurement people could be operating different ways. You know, are they incentivized to save money? Not so many procurement people have those bonuses these days, but I think for an agency to understand where procurement are coming from is half the battle, to be honest. The big ones have got really good at it. You know, the number of proactive documents I get in responses to pitches I run and RFPs. You know, I saw a great document I wish I still kept from an agency before Christmas, which was 40 ways we can add value. You know, things like training, access to senior management. A really, really great document. This is what we've learned from other procurement people. So I think agencies do need to engage with procurement in a more positive way, and it does help.
And so what sort of tips, so those value add tips and things like that, what should, bringing that back to a sort of question is around that expectation. So agencies, as you say, often come in negative expectations of dealing with marketing procurement. How can they, should they be looking to do to really get a better relationship going with that marketing procurement professional to really sort of drive across the board a better engagement with that client?
Well, and I appreciate it's hard. I'm sure some of the people watching on the call like, oh, you know, we dealt with so and so, and it was all about cost focus, and or we did a tender, we weren't allowed to speak to anybody. You know, that is their process. So I think it's hard when I see these initiatives come out saying dump the RFIs, dump the RFPs, look at different cost models. For me, it's about education and communication. You know, and again, don't waste energy being negative and ranting and raving. It's like, okay, let's understand where they're coming from. Can we do it a different way? Can we engage with the stakeholders in a different way? If that procurement person is being negative or, you know, managing a tight process that you can't engage directly with stakeholders, which I disagree with and does annoy me as well, can we think outside the box and how can we get around that? So I think that's the way. It's just saying, if you have got someone who is awkward, belligerent, and is in that 20-30% that are still focused on cost, is that what the organisation is going to be like? You know, because that's obviously if the procurement person is under pressure to deliver that saving, is it going to be like that? Are you going to be nickel and diming with the stakeholder going forward? And do you want that? That's why it's important to get the marketing or the stakeholder involved as well, so you can test the water. So I think it's understanding where they're coming from, understanding their dialogue, you know, and actually, you know, understand if they are being reasonable in their request, because procurement's role is to make sure everyone's treated fairly. And surely every agency on this call would want that actually you don't want Bill Bob, you know, marketing director coming in and using his mate round the corner when you've been incumbent for 5 years. You know, procurement's role is to make sure, you know, that actually you get those 4 or 5 agencies in a process and that everyone is treated equally and fairly, hence the way that we communicate out, making sure everyone's got the right information. So I think it's, you know, I would just ask just to have a positive attitude. If you are getting challenged in ways that you don't like, then I think you have to make the call and say, right, it's giving me vibes. I think it's negative. It is about cost focus, you know, and it's only a 50 grand or 100 grand project. Just say, let's make the call. Do we pull out? And I think it is really hard. I think I've always gone on about it's an oversupply market, but actually at the moment it is a seller's market. You know, I've just come off a call with a Chinese client and they're like, all our agencies are asking us for increases, you know. I'm sure those of you on the call are like, oh yeah, that's great, but you know, it is an oversupply market, but at the same time, you know, there's, you know, dearth of talent. Agencies try and be more confident, and again, it's really easy for me to sit here in my study in Tame and say that, but I think, you know, having the confidence does help. and having that knowledge and having that relationship with procurement and learn. So you might be dealing with 3 or 4 different procurement people. I always find that agencies haven't shared that practice internally within agencies. And I'm not saying the CFO is necessarily the right person, because often they aren't, to manage it. But you should have someone who's a single point of contact in your agency. Because actually, if you've done that great management reporting tool for client A, where's procurement, why can't you use it in client B, C, and D? And I think agencies don't share best practice enough internally. When they've got a shared learning with one client procurement, share it with all your procurement clients. For all my years as a consultant, 15 years, I've said to agencies, have a procurement club, get all your procurement people in a room, be it virtually at the moment, every quarter, and talk about what they do. And no agency, a few agencies have got an ear to doing it at the end when Richard Dutton was there, not got an ear to do it. No one's done it. Well, why aren't you talking to your procurement people on a regular basis and saying, what are the trends, what's going on? So you've got a feel for what's going on, and educate. I helped MSQ with a procurement festival, they called it, last year, and it was brilliant. We had 30, 40 procurement people there for a half day, and we had talks on sustainability, diversity and inclusion, technology, and really engaged with. Actually, a few procurement people have followed up with MSQ since. So I think it's treating procurement as an equal with marketing. So a very long answer, Paddy. Sorry for that.
It's fine, and thank you, Tina. That's been a really good insight into what's changed, what's moved on, and actually it's great to hear that the quality has moved on as well. In terms of now moving this forward, I think it'd be great to understand, sort of, as you say, procurement's really now at the top table. It'd be great to see sort of what your thoughts are from 2021 and what you think is going to happen in 2022. And there's a specific question to come around pricing into that as well. Are there any new models coming through? It'd be great just to have an understanding of where we've come, where we are now, and where we're going to.
Yeah, well, actually, fun enough, as I was preparing for this, my daily email from supply management available in all good online. So that's our SIPs, our trade boarding magazine called Supply Management. And again, anyone listening, I think you could probably, I'm sure it's not much, I did hear it's like 80 quid or something, but it might be worth, if you are interested in knowing more about procurement. I mean, there's a lot of things about public sector and wind turbines. There's hardly anything about marketing, but actually a really good article this morning that a headhunter had done a study with some top CPOs, so chief procurement officers, and there were 4 trends that came out of it. So whilst they're general, but I thought they were really interesting about going forward, which was the first one was actually building relationships in a complex ecosystem. So I think that's really interesting in that, and that does apply, I think, even more so for marketing in terms of, the complex nature of who we're having to deal with, C-suite, our stakeholders, the research team, our suppliers. So really, really interesting to how you can build those relationships with a multi-stakeholder and a complex ecosystem with technology. Embedding sustainability at the heart of procurement, and that's a key thing. Those of you, as Cal on the call from John Alien, hi Cal, know that from a media point of view, I'm really focused on the co-chair of the Get Shit Done board for the Conscious Advertising Network, and we've been trying, for 3.5 years to get brands and agencies to sign up to CAN, which is 6 manifestos like hate crime, misinformation. And it's just bloody hard to get brands to sign up. We are doing a climate change and sustainability manifesto this year, but sustainability, ESG, is at the heart of procurement. And actually, if you talk to the CPO at Anheuser-Busch, she has got sustainability in her title. So I think we're going to see a lot more about ESG this year. But please look at the Conscious Advertising Network for those of you that are interested. Leading on digital innovation was the full third one, and I think that's so true. So how does that apply to marketing? That could be things like using AI to do supplier information. So, is your website up to date? Are you out there? I think procurement will use tools like that to say, okay, we're not necessarily going to buy a Dun & Bradstreet credit report anymore. What information is out there on media as a category, on event management as a category? Because we have to write boring stuff called category plans. So I think, using procurement will start to use technology more to drive insight into the supply market. So it's really important that your online presence is out there. And the fourth recommendation from this report with CPOs was actually providing strategic business insights. And I think, as you said, Paddy, the fact we've had a license to A bigger license to act really supports that this year. And actually, the report ended with saying that CPOs should be called chief value officers. So I think you are seeing a real seismic change in the role of procurement, becoming much more strategic than tactical. So I think that's what I think. So whilst they're generic for procurement, I think they really apply to marketing. On your question about pricing, I think, do I see clients pushing for pricing? Yes and no. I think a lot of procurement people would say they always put it in their Excel or whatever to say, if you've got an alternative model, agencies don't usually. And I remember Claire Astle, she's left the industry now, she was ex-Boots years and years ago. She said, we work in a creative industry and agencies are not creative enough in their commercials. I think it's true. I always say, look at different pricing models, and I've got, employees from agencies on the call, support the Blair Ennis, know who does the pricing model, what's the other chat, but there's all different pricing models out there. I think it's probably more agency driven than client driven. And I think if you can engage the right procurement person, I had a call with an agency yesterday on a pitch I'm dealing with, and they said, well, actually, we'd like to do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, gut feels I don't like it, but actually write it down and let's put it in front of the client. Because actually, I'm quite interested. He was saying about if he has a PRF in place, performance related fee, they would like an element of their fee as a license fee. I was like, I've never heard of that. For those on the call that haven't accessed it, the IPA, it's a really, really old pricing remuneration guide, Paddy. It's probably around when you were at ISPA. It's that one with the awful bald-headed tango guy on the, I think it's got a purple face, isn't he? But it's it's still really up to date. It's the IPA remuneration guide. I think ISPA might have worked with them on it. And it's got 10 models. So it's got hourly rates, commission, license, concept fee, production markup. It hasn't got buy-in, sort of royalty, etc. But it's really worth having access in that IPA document and having a look. So the short answer is I think it's more agency driven than client. Procurement of the facilitator, but we need brave marketeers to go with it. And I think that's often where that does fall down on the pricing models. But yeah, brilliant. IPA remuneration guide is the second book I would recommend.
Yeah, and I think actually going on to that, I think it was ISPA and IPA did a joint, it was a good pitch guide.
You worked on that, I think, didn't you?
Yes.
That was really. I think the website is still there, Paddy.
I think it is, and I think that's where you can. I'll put in the link in the follow-up email, but it's. I think it's thegoodpitch.com, and there's
really good
guides on there, including the remuneration one. So you should be able to.
And I think also what you had in there, didn't you, was different ways of pitching. So like chemistry, just doing chemistry. I mean, it's like creative brief being like, ditch the pitch process. You are not going to change a process that is in place to buy wind turbines, ships, electricity, and design services. You are not going to do it. What you can do is help educate the procurement person that, I think agencies don't realise what a fight marketing procurement have. Here's our tiny violin, but we really have to fight. We're different, and we are. Marketing procurement is very different from buying my glasses or buying that. That's a spec. We're buying people, and we know that. We're not stupid. And we do fight marketing and agencies' corner so much of the time. We are different. We don't want to do the auctions. We want to basically be able to build that relationship. So anything you can do to help that. So we are fighting the corner to say, to do a pitch process differently, to do a chemistry, to not do a pitch. But I think, Paddy, that good pitch guide still stands the test of time in doing that. So I support you in agencies to access that as well.
Perfect. That'll be in the follow-up email. So there's a couple of questions coming in, which I'll come to in a minute. But I just wanted to move on. We've talked about the world of pitching, actually, just briefly touched on. But when we were talking in our briefing session, we're talking about sort of actually the interesting approaches and the value adds that networks are doing. And you mentioned it, touched on it briefly earlier. It'd be great to get some sort of advice on what independent agencies can be doing and can learn from big networks in terms of the pitch process they go through and what they're doing at the moment.
Yeah,
which stands out.
So a couple of things. One is have a single point of contact, and it's someone who knows the numbers. So it's not new business, and it's usually not the CFO. It has to be a decision maker.
Well, mine talks just
down on that. So it'd be really good to have a single point of contact, someone who, understands procurement. And so I don't find CFOs, FDs the best, to be honest. They don't understand it a lot of the time. Personally, I like dealing with MDs, or people that own the business. I always love negotiating with James Murphy. Adam and Eve, just because he knew it and gets it, and we could, take the mickey. I was working for John Lewis on the setting up the marketing procurement team ages ago, and it was when Adam and Eve were in there. I came out and I'd get a cab from Victoria to Marylebone because it was a good quick. I was paying for it myself, and James Murphy rang me, said, to let you know, you're the procurement consultant, aren't you, for John Lewis? Yeah, he said, you just got in a cab. I'm like, how do you know? He goes, I'm sitting in reception and I got the bus here. Just making sure that, you're always, I said it's my own money, but to have that dialogue is really, really great. So I think to have a single point of contact and to have that relationship, the networks are really good at producing additional information. So I've run about 7-8 pictures of PepsiCo in the last 18 months for Walkers and Doritos and Quaker. And there's been some really, VCCP are the best, to be honest. Some really, really great documents about ways of working, production. That value add was absolutely brilliant document. I think that's why Arnold did that. So it's like we've answered the questions, Tina, but actually here's some additional documents that you could have a look at. So that's probably the two main things. And things that added value. In terms of they're getting better at, look, you can access to senior management training courses, access to this system, and don't that's a value of 30 grand, by the way, and we're not charging for the C-suite. So probably getting better at putting a value on their added values, a single point of contact, additional information that procurement are, I think, proactive. I think I know we don't help you by sending out lots of Excels, or I'm doing a pitch at the moment and like 10 sheets of Excel, so we don't help ourselves with lots of information, and you're trying to lift above that and be proactive with the level of information from that point of view.
Brilliant. And I suppose it would be great to understand from your perspective, before pitching even starts, how do, as you say, they're starting to look at sort of technology, AI and things like that. What do procurement look for in agencies when before they start the pitch process? And what should agencies be doing to get best practice in that side of things, and what should they avoid doing?
I think the biggest letdown on a pitching process, the agency's not reading the documents. I had a call with an agency yesterday, and they'd had my Excel before Christmas. I'm like, oh, we're asking about X, Y, and Z. I was like, that's tab 5, that's tab 3. So, and it's like the answering the exam question, isn't there? There's part A and there's part B. They focus on part A, forget about part B, and also forget who they're writing it for. Do you really think the stakeholders read all these documents? I really, in all my 30 years, I can probably count on both hands the number of stakeholders that have read the RFPs. So I think, it's making sure you're writing for your audience, but, you're not necessarily writing War and Peace, but make sure you know who's reading the documents. I think engage with procurement as soon as you can, or find out I know agencies and they're probably like, oh, I'd rather put our head in the sand, but then you end up, you've been appointed, and it's that cartoon that Tom Fishburne did years ago, where the marketing person in the agency was sitting at the at a table with a glass of wine, and there was like an axe man, a hangman, like a 50 Shades of Grey person with an axe, and it said follow procurement. They buy soya beans, grains, and marketing. So it's like, done the deal, go and work with procurement. But actually, always ask who there's procurement. Because actually, it's better to get it out up front and engage with it. So I think it's that. So, and a single point of contact as well, Paddy. I think that's where, getting someone who is that point person. So this pitch process one at the moment, one of the agencies I've really struggled to get a point of contact and get engagement. And we're 4 weeks off the pitch. I'm like, look, I need to have that first conversation with you. And it's like pulling teeth. And it's not necessarily the new business person. So I think for me, it's always that single point of contact in the pitch process as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tina. I'm going to start bringing some people in, actually just bring some other people into this, so it's not just my voice talking, asking questions. Otherwise, I think people would be bored of that. But in terms, David Wood, can you just unmute yourself, please?
Woody.
Hello, David.
There you are. See, I was paying attention.
Woody, right?
Hello, Tina.
New Year.
Happy New Year. How are your travels?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. For those, I went to the States in December to see my step grandson for the first time. So it's lovely, thank you. Yeah, it was ages ago. You all right?
Yeah, very good, man. Very good. So good. Now, what am I here for? Am I meant to repeat the question I put on the copy thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll do that then. Hello, Tina. I'd love to understand how you feel about the agency landscape as we emerge from COVID. You mentioned a moment ago the idea that there appears to be a seller's market. And I'd love it if you unpacked that a little more.
Thank you for that question, Woody.
That's my great-
What I'm seeing is it is an I've always said it's an oversupply market, but actually agencies are bloody busy. Hopefully you all are on the call. And I'm seeing a lot of agencies say no to work for various reasons, being embedding stuff they won last year, doesn't fit. You know, you had Iris come out, Bennett, and the chief strategy officer, say a while ago, you know, we're going to check people's sustainability credentials before we pitch them. So actually, I've been saying to clients, it is a seller's market. So, you know, I really hope all of you are busy, and I'm giving you the confidence to say no to those clients. So that's what I'm seeing, Woody, that actually it's been quite hard sometimes to fulfill a shortlist for some clients. The agency's like, no, I haven't got the staff, obviously, as well. So we're busy, doesn't fit with where we want to go. We're trying to embed on new ones, and actually we haven't got the staff for that, and we're going to concentrate. It's why, you know, I think obviously a lot of bigger agencies got rid of a lot of people, and they're suffering because of that. So hopefully you guys on the call, more independent ones, in a great shape. But I've seen a number of intermediaries as well struggling to get a really good fit because a lot of agencies are saying no.
Yeah.
Hopefully you are.
Yeah, no, we as you know, we tend to say no just because we're precocious. But yeah, no, that's a really interesting perspective. May I have a supplementary, Paddy?
Yes, you can, David.
Thank you. I was interested in there was an article in the Times this morning suggesting that Unilever are losing it because they're too focused on banging on about sustainability to the detriment of their portfolio. So there's a bit of a shareholders ruction going on there. I sort of suggest that sustainability is a matter for procurement in the way that it shouldn't really be a matter for marketing and communications. In other words, it's not about talking about it, it's about actually doing something about it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think where you've got the chief procurement officers like Anheuser-Busch that are buying, I don't know what goes into beer, I don't drink, but the wheat and the glass and the paper, obviously from what we would call a direct procurement purchase, it's a massive impact. So I totally agree with you. And I attended one of our 6 global conferences at the end of last year. And I was quite shocked that, you know, out of, say, the 5 global procurement chiefs, 3 did have sustainability in their title. So I agree with you. I would also argue that having tried to, you know, get conscious advertising network out there for the last 2 years, it's not just about sustainability and the ESG side of things. You know, the things like after the, you know, the Euros, the racism, you know, and that's why we had 400 people sign our petition on hate crime. After COP26, we had another 250 people sign our climate misinformation. So for me, with my conscious advertising network hat on, it's actually wider than that. And, you know, it's all those issues from an ethical point of view. And I still think procurement, be it on that wider issues, should be taking the lead. And I totally agree. It's not just a marketing thing. And, you know, if we're dealing with like complex ecosystem, as I said, of suppliers, you know, stakeholders, shareholders, etc. Procurement people, you know, generally CPOs and multi-procurement people should have a responsibility. As we move away from being cost focused, we should be looking at our ecosystem and the ethics. And it's not just sustainability, it's everything. We shouldn't be advertising next to Tommy Robinson adverts. You know, we shouldn't be allowing, you know, climate misinformation out there. So we should be owning all of that. So I totally agree with you. So that's a long answer too. I agree.
I think actually I'm just going to jump in as well, Tina. There's a question I was reading. What was it? Packaging waste in Europe is the equivalent of 3 or 5 times the amount of waste a year in Seattle alone.
Really?
And what is it? It's a pair of jeans in return in America goes 1,500 miles to get back to where it goes to. So there's logistical challenges in that sustainability agenda. So moving on, David, thank you very much for your question. Paul Hackett, Paul, happy new year to you. Just bring you into the questions as well, if that's okay.
Hey there, Patrick. Thank you, Tina. Good day. It's a pleasure to meet you for the first time. Although I've seen you speak, on loads and loads of occasions. We're small consultancy, but ex-agency folks are very conscious of the importance and the role of procurement. One of the things that we started doing at the end of last year was we took out subscriptions to things like CPO strategy online to try to get our heads around what it is that procurement folk, as a matter of course, are reading and looking at and all that kind of thing. In your day-to-day and in your experience, what are what are the good sources that you would defer to naturally to say, oh, that's interesting, or that's intelligent, that has a role to play in what I do, and it would be useful if other people I speak to were aware of these things as well?
Good question. I literally just came off a call from someone else who asked me that. I'm quite surprised, Paul, that procurement don't usually subscribe to anything because of budgets. Because procurement don't have their own, they don't have any money. So hence why when they want to use a media auditor or production consultant, they have to go to marketing to pay for it. So I think good on you for subscribing. But apart from, so in the UK, CIPS is our trade body.
Yep.
And that's supply management. And again, I think, Paul, that is worth looking at, because that's, like that thing this morning, I just scan it. I get a daily email and I thought, oh, bloody hell, that's actually quite interesting. There's hardly anything in there for marketing, and I try my best to get marketing articles in there. But I think, Paul, it gives you a feel like those four things for CPO. And I thought, do you know what? Like, Paul, as your consultancy, you could think you could take those four things, the ecosystem, sustainability, digital innovation, and use that. So I would say a minimum SIPs. So supply management is the magazine. They don't read campaign, the drum. They don't read it. I mean, even those that, and they buy digital services. I say, well, you on Twitter and Facebook. No, LinkedIn is probably the best way. They probably access LinkedIn. So I would say commenting on articles, writing articles on there. I would say LinkedIn is probably the best tool to get some engagement, to get a presence known. I think your own website, when I started in procurement 30 years ago, there was Kelly's directory, so we get it, and like, oh, I need to find I still remember a business card supplier, go through it. Like, these days we've got the internet. So I think websites, and so many agency websites, I always say is quite shocking. Like, who are you? What do you do? Who are your clients? The generic contact us form. So I would spend your money in getting your website. Do you have a procurement section on your website? On that, for example, like a lot of the big ones, just a new business tip here, Paddy and Paul, for those on the call, those that want to go to a lot of the big suppliers, like retailers, do often have a supply section on their website, normally down the bottom on a corporate website, but it normally is procurement portal, supplier portal, so you can register. I've got an interest in design services, and when they've got a tender, they will look at it. So I would say, Paul, don't waste lots of money on I would do supply management from a UK perspective.
Yep.
The WFA is probably quite a good one to subscribe to, and what Lowe was doing there, because things like, a lot of their stuff is subscription based, but I'd register for their emails. You've got procurement leaders, that will give you a feel, but supply management from a UK perspective will give you a feel about procurement generally, but not marketing. And then the other thing is, I mentioned earlier, is ProcureCon events, but don't get involved in them, Paul, because they'll cost you 30 grand because they're really expensive.
No, that would be that. Thank you so much, Tina. That would be way out of our league. We were just really conscious of, as I say, as a small enterprise, not wishing to appear too small in our thinking and the way we responded to things. That was.
I think supply management, Paul, so especially that article this morning, I thought, bloody hell, that's a really good article, actually.
Yeah.
And so, you can see one of those a week, at least it'll give you a vibe for where procurement generally is going. It won't necessarily always go marketing.
No, absolutely. And just really cheekily, just picking up on Woody's point, the conversation you were having about sustainability and ethics. Our particular focus, we're part of a collaboration with University College London Hospital, and we try to bring well-being strategy into growth strategy. So it's not just about physical and mental health; it's about consumer expectations, blah blah blah. Do you ever see that kind of thing appearing on the procurement discussion horizon as well?
I think, how have you managed your staff during this period? I think, even ESG is still quite small on a scoring sheet. But I think that side of things will, and your side, Paul, and the well-being, I think will increase. I think that, as there's more awareness of, making sure we've got the right suppliers in place, and actually they're looking after their team. So, in the States, for example, diversity and inclusion is massive, much more than sustainability, whereas over here in UK and Europe, it's actually sustainability over D&I, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I agree, Paul. I think we will start to see it, but I do think even just the ESG side of stuff is 5-10% of a scoring sheet at the moment.
Right.
So I think we will start to see it, but it'll be a small percentage. I think it will grow. It's got to, isn't it? I think it has.
Yeah. No,
to.
indeed. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Paddy.
Thank you, Paul. Actually, Tina, I'm just going to pick up on something Paul was talking about, and actually you just mentioned, which is the procurement section on your website, on an agency's website. What sort of information should agencies be putting on that?
Who they are, what they actually do, because it's so hard sometimes. Like, right, so are you a? And I've had that because I've had to do a search for a shopper marketing agency for a company. I'm like, do you do shopper marketing or not? I'm not too sure. What do you do? Who you are? Why do you not tell me who you are? Because it's people industry. So, it's like me years ago, I did some pro bono work for design agency. I'm like, oh, do you look at my website? Should I rebrand? They're like, I still remember they said, no, you're like Eddie Stobart and Ann Summers. Everyone knows who you are. I'm like, oh, right, okay, I'll just keep my name. So, on my website is like Tina Fegent. So, yeah, what do you actually do? Who you are? Shout from the roofs about who you are. Contact name, not a generic one, because I've been so many times like, in the old days, you could ring the switchboard, couldn't you, and get through to new business or someone. But now you have to fill in a form, so a contact name. And, I was guilty of this. If you've got access, if it's linked to your LinkedIn or Twitter account, make sure, or you've got a blog, make sure it's up to date. I actually took my Twitter account off while I'm not using it, and people don't want to know about my cats. So I actually took the Twitter feeds off my website. But, I looked at an agency site this morning about a blog, and it was June 21 was the last post. So if you are going to have up to date, a blog or a link to your blog, LinkedIn, Twitter account, make sure it's up to date. So who you are, what you do, and up to date contact information as well, and latest clients as well, because often when you're doing a long list search, it's about competitors. So if you're working for an energy client, is that good or bad? And I think on one of the Pepsi pitches, we got pulled up by, they got procurement team in Poland, very cost focused. Well, like, that agency's on the list. They work for Coke, and obviously that is a no-no. Well, like, they don't, but it was on the agency website. They'd had a look, and it wasn't up to date. So, and I know it's really hard for agencies because you want to shout on the fact you don't work for Pepsi and stuff like that. So do you put dates on it or stuff like that? So that was a hard one actually, but sort of the procurement person was challenging my recommendation, so you cocked up and trying to show me up. I'm like, no, but they were a Coke agency 3 years ago, but it was still on the agency website. I think the agency then did take it down.
Brilliant, thank you. I've got Simon Rind Tut. Simon, do you want to come into the call, please? Can we see you?
I know what he looks like.
I've not met. Hi, Simon. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Simon, you must know how to work technology. There you are.
Just about. There we go. That's better. That's better.
Brilliant. Hi, Simon. Nice to meet you. Please go ahead, ask a question.
Yeah, it's really nice to be talking to a legend. So that's a bonus.
You know the legend already.
Tina, 2 questions. Firstly, we work with a lot of agencies that are continually bemoaning the fact that they've been nailed down on deliverables and price, and the client keeps on increasing the scope, particularly on social and digital. What would your advice be on how you deal with clients where you're having that sort of problem?
Have a quarterly review of the scope and where you are, and agencies are really crap at doing it. So QBR, quarterly business review, it only has to be an hour, but that is the one way. I remember years ago, probably when I first met you guys, was when I was at Orange with Lowe's, and we'd agree a fee above the line, blah blah, and then it came to the end of the year, and I know Barry Braun, as was the CFO then, said that's another £500,000. Like, what? Marketing asked them to do like badges for Glastonbury and stuff like that. It's just like, where did that come from? And we did end up getting half of it, but why did it in the 12 months? So I totally agree, Simon. It happens so often. We know what clients are like. But as long as you've got that scope of work in the first place, review it every quarter. It only has to be an hour, but But I did it for any clients. I did it, contract through Stephen with SSE. We put quarterly business reviews in, and we had a fixed agenda, which was what's the scope, what are the hours, people. And actually, it's really interesting because actually, why is that planning director spending so much time on that tactical staff? And then obviously how that translates to fee. And we reviewed it every quarter. At the end of the 12 months, you're in a good place. Either you've been running, high, low, so stuff has been taken out, for example. So yeah, QBRs are what you should be doing. Monthly, there's no good doing monthly because obviously there's a timesheet lag actually as well. So quarterly, then at the end of 12 months, you're in a great position then to discuss the fees going forward.
Great advice, great advice. The second thing I was going to ask you, Tina, is that one of the things that constantly comes up in agency client reviews is clients bemoaning the lack of proactivity.
Clients bemoaning it.
I'm sorry?
Are you saying clients bemoan the lack of proactivity from agencies?
Yeah. And then you talk to the agencies, and the agencies say, well, the scope's increased.
Yeah.
We haven't got the time and the people. We would like to be proactive, but we can't put as much time into proactivity without destroying the slim profit margin we've actually got. Is there a way around that?
I think they're great questions. This obviously shows what a success relationship audits and management is. I think again, it's having that dialogue. The trouble is, it's the profit margin discussion, isn't it? Do you really want to get into that? So I think you're totally right in that you want us to be proactive and tell you about new trends and what your competitors are doing. But when we're only running at 5%, it's really hard to do that. So it's sort of linked into the first question, is having those scope of work discussions to make sure you have got a bit of that buffer. So you have got a bit of that time. And to be honest, Simon, I tell you what, one thing agencies, when I worked for SSC, I saw something in the press about EDF or about Adder and Eve when they were using, I've sent it to the client. Agencies never did that. I obviously wouldn't say stuff about their competitors, but sometimes little things don't cost much. Being proactive, market intelligence, a bit of I thought of this morning. I've done that. I still work with SSE corporate. Obviously, the issue about the stupid SSE over email about 10 ways to keep yourself warm, cuddle your cat. I sent to my SSE corporate. She's like, yeah, thanks, Tina. And also because I put a proposal in before Christmas with her. Susie, I'm not sure if you've seen this. She said, oh God, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Oh, by the way, I'll be in touch about that proposal. So result, so I think I agree, Simon. So I think you don't want to get into a profit margin discussion, but you want to try and allow a bit of buffer. But actually some stuff, just forward an article, like what you said about the Times article this morning.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. The small, what I call keep in touch, saw this, thought of you, and the reason why, but I think the important thing is the reason why I'm sending to you is X, Y, and Z rather than just forward something on. But actually what you made me think is, of course, if you're having the quarterly scoping review meeting, you can then float potential proactivity ideas.
Yeah, I'll tell you one great thing I saw. I worked for Half was a few years ago, and ITG in there, who I think are brilliant from a sort of print and retail man. They had monthly reviews because they were doing their print management and also like their point of sale stuff. On the back of their equivalent, a monthly QBR, they had 2 or 3 pages, and it was a matrix of proactive ideas. It was brilliant. And what I've got them to do is put potential cost saving and cost, and then ease of implementation, low, medium, high. And they reviewed that every month. I thought it was brilliant. Obviously, some of it was getting Halfers to use ITG to do X, but also there was and I thought that is a really, really good idea. It was a constant list. They added to, they deleted. I just made them put some value, cost on, and ease of implementation. So where was there a quick win, and it's going to cost us £3,000. I thought that was a brilliant thing that they did.
Fantastic. As always, thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Stephen, James, I'm going to bring you in. That's a really good question you've got on the chat. Stephen, where are you? Can you unmute and appear, please?
I'm unmuted. I'm going to claim that my camera doesn't work, but the reality is I look horrific today, and I don't want to lose it.
Yes, thank you. Do you want to ask your question, please?
Yeah. So, not all businesses out there have like real processes. Sorry, is the audio not very good?
No. Sorry.
I'd love to hear.
Is any better?
Shall I ask a question for you, Stephen?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, brilliant. Sorry, Stephen. Not all companies have proper procurement processes, but is there anything that you think agencies should adopt when beginning relationships with these buying marketing services, with those buying marketing services, but don't view through a procurement lens?
So, what? So you want to tell the client how to do procurement?
Is that right, Stephen?
Is that what you mean, Stephen? How you could help them run a proper procurement process?
To an extent, yeah. So where they maybe aren't doing things the best possible way, or where in ways we could add value or be more structured.
Well, I'm not a hard salesperson at all, but you can send them to tinafegent.com, of course, for help at reasonable rates. But there's so much information out there, Stephen. So you could. Within our purchasing group, and Maria from AR, who's on our call today, is a member of that as well. And we've got people like HSBC. So on the SIPS website, there is so you could ask if they're a SIPS member. So from a procurement point of view and as I said, we've got quite a few people on it's called a specialist knowledge group that I chair for SIPS. There is a marketing section on the SIPS website, which again, agencies on the call. I'm not sure if you can access it. If you're a member, you might be able to. But we've got some great stuff, and say Kerry's on the call as well from AER. She was one of our founding members as well, and we've got some great stuff on that website, Stephen. So, are they a SIPS member, CIPS? If they are, they should. If they're not, they should be. And actually, there is a marketing section on the website. So I would say, ask them, or you could encourage them to access that SIPS website. It's called SKG. Specialist knowledge group on that. And as Paddy said, obviously ISBAR with his old hat on, they've got to refocus. Andrew Low's in there, but ISBAR do have Compag, which I set up 25 years ago with people like Jeff Cobb, and they have got their purchasing action group. And then, as I said, the WFA, they've got quite an active procurement group, but they tend to be more global. And as Paddy also said, the IPA actually. So those of you, there's a lot of, they did a series of remuneration guides, which I've asked them to repeat. And actually, I did work with them, our SIPS group, we did work with them 18 months ago. There's top 10 tips, which is accessed via the IPA site and also the SIPS site. And it's top 10 tips for marketing, procurement, and clients. And actually, Paddy, I'll find it and send you the links. Maybe you can send
Brilliant.
That out actually.
I will do.
We did it at the start of COVID. We did a webinar, and then we haven't really followed much since then. So, Stephen, there's quite a lot of information. And there's the book that I said, Joey's book, and also there's a book called Magic and Logic, which the IPA, ISBA, and SIPS worked on together over 15 years ago. It's the first time all three trade bodies have collaborated and haven't done since. And that's got ways of working in there as well. So quite a lot of information actually. Paddy, I'll put it together and send it over to you. Joey's book, Magic and Logic, and some of the links, and you can send that in an email.
Fantastic, thank you, Tina. We've got time for one last question, so I'm going to bring in Nish because I would have thought you'd have asked the client themselves. But Nish, do you want to come unmute yourself?
Oh, hiya. Thank you for giving me a moment. Oddly enough, we had a call with a few people recently, Cumming, SIPS, GSK, etc. And all three of them were asking that the agency finds out what they need.
Right. That's weird.
Yes, I know. And I didn't know if this was like a trend where it was easy to sort of palm people off, but find a problem that they need fixing, particularly Intel, because they won't share this as a problem.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to seem, I guess they don't want to seem weak in front. There's a problem when the other people that will also be looking on the website will be the direct competitors. So how would an agency go about, I mean,
I know what it is, Nish, because I saw a talk by that guy who used to head up Fever Tree, and he said that. I was on a panel with him a few years ago. I forget what his name was now, and he said, he gets 34 emails a day from agencies, but come to me with a problem, and I'll talk to you. So I think, I think that's when obviously now procurement have picked that mantle up as well, cheeky buggers. Actually, I set up the team at Smith Klein Beecham. So what they're doing really is, it's a bit of yeah, I think it's a bit cheeky, but I can see why they're doing it. They get like, so that, oh yeah, Nish's contact us and look, oh yeah, here's another agency for you. If you go and say, actually, you know, in looking at the internet, or you know, looking at your promotion in Sainsbury's, you haven't done this, you need to be doing that. So it's a bit of natural selection. That's the phrase I was looking for. It's them getting you to do a bit of work to justify why they should put you forward to talk to their marketing people.
Right.
It's quite clever, actually. Well, now I think about it.
It is, but I'm just thinking of, I don't know how many people here are working for small size agencies. You know, there is the risk that we could spend a lot of time with absolute zero reward. But if there's a really good way of finding out a couple of big things that we can go in, and I mean, like if you said, we've got a meeting with Cummings tomorrow. So if you said, for example, co-op or retail, where is the big three ticket that we could find the retail problem?
It's a good point, Nish. And also, you don't want to give away your crown jewels and say, you know, oh, by the way, you know, the answer is X. And by the way, you know, they go and then use another agency, you know. So anything you would do, I would copyright it. If you share anything, a hard copy, make sure you copyright it. I can see why they're asking Nish, and I actually think it is quite clever, a bit cheeky. But I think it's a hard one for you to sort of say, well, actually, you haven't looked at X or Y, but you know, you don't want to then give them the idea they're then going to take to someone else. So if you do anything like that, don't spend lots of time doing it. But it is quite clever, and it could help you, but make sure you've got copyright on it.
I think, Nish, I'm just going to follow up. Actually, there's some bit of advice when we used to do proactive approaches on business development for sort of to approach clients directly, and we'd look at actually what aren't they doing and should be doing based on what their category is, and actually going in, being proactive and saying, actually, you're spending all this money over here, but actually you could probably get more effectiveness or effective approach over here, and doing, we did something different. And that's opened a lot more doors. So that's a good chat, but I can have a chat with you about that as well. Tina, I think that's all we've got time to. David's given me sort of like nod. Thank you so much. It was a really, really interesting session and really enlightening. I think there's lots of good stuff coming out. We're going to be sending out the webinar after this, but also lots of other information that Tina and I are bring to pull together. So thank you very much. David, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Paddy. Thank you, Tina and Paddy. That was really useful, practical and informative session. So thank you very much for joining us today, Tina. It was great, and also thank you for everybody that joined us on the call.
Thank you, Ralph, for making me look quite young in the picture as well.
You look great, Tina. As I mentioned at the start of the call, we've recorded the session. You'll get a link, and Tina's going to send the links to those books, etc. I think you see here we've had Ralph Mann from Purple Heron doing one of his amazing live illustrations on today's session. There'll also be a link to that. But if you wanted to look up purpleheron.co.uk, you can learn a bit more about Ralph. Just a bit of church notices. We've got a couple of events coming up. On the 26th of January, we've got one of our regular Pimento updates. It'll be focused on e-commerce and retail. We've got a very interesting panel that Stephen's putting together for that. That'll be followed up on the 27th with one of our Pimento 5 PM clubs. And that's being hosted by Viditech. So please keep an eye open for our emails for registration. The other thing that's really important is you can find all our events on our website. So if you need to see what's going on in Pimento land, just go on to www.pimento.co.uk. And to say once again, thank you very much for joining us today, and hope you enjoyed the session, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.